Hey everybody, welcome to the DFW Real Producers Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dunahoe. Today we've got a great show with two of DFW's most influential real estate ambassadors of the Real Producers community. On my left, Mr. Dustin Keller, the Independence with Independence title, the Schultz and Keller firm, and of course on my right, the other Dustin, Mr. Dustin Wright. And Dustin, you officially with the Portfolio Commercial Group and the commercial director for KW Miami and Tennessee. Is that right? Yeah. Well, welcome to the show. And so just to kind of, I think to paraphrase this, we got two Dustins. We're just going to call this the D squared show, you think, or the D2 or
the D2
or
it's the Dustin show.
The Dustin show or the double D. Can we say that? We need to
edit that part.
HR needs to check on that. But I'm so glad you guys are here because you guys are guys that are so influential in the DFW real estate community. So you've done a lot of great things. I'm going to just start the show with a little bit of an icebreaker before we let you guys kind of talk a little bit more about what you do. So this is kind of a rapid fire, and I'm going to say the question, and then you both give an answer. And then there's a scientific formulation here that afterwards your answer is going to reveal something very, very
scientific.
Deep. Yeah. It's kind of a Mr. Wizard type of thing. Okay,
great.
So here's the question, and you answer first, and then you can answer second. Acoustic or electric guitar?
Acoustic.
Electric.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs.
Chili with beans or without?
With beans.
No beans, man. Never.
DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
I got to go with DC. I'm a Batman guy. Always have been. I got to stick with DC.
All right. Very good. Okay. Fashionably late or eagerly early?
Oh, earlier, my mom will kill me.
I want to say early, but bruh.
Very good. Chase your dreams or follow your heart?
Follow your heart.
Yeah, follow your heart. Right on.
Success through hard work or success through smart work?
Oh, I'll go smart work because that's kind of a mantra of my life I'll go with.
Yeah. I prefer smart work. I tend to do the hard. Yeah. But I prefer smart.
Be remembered for your kindness or for your achievements?
Kindness.
Yeah, kindness for sure.
Right on. Make a difference for one person or influence a crowd?
So make a difference for one person.
Yeah, one person.
That's easier to achieve.
Easier to achieve and typically more impact.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. And the last question, time travel to the past or teleport to the future?
I would do future, I think.
I'm going to go past because I'll be the smartest guy.
Yeah.
I'll invent the iPhone.
Yeah. There's a book about that actually. There's a book that tells you how to reinvent things if you ever somehow got sucked into the past.
Yeah.
I've never read it because I don't think that's actually going to happen to me. It does exist.
But you're prepared.
Yeah. Just in case.
Yeah.
In case, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm tallying your questions and this little formula, and it actually comes up with this. And so what this tells me about you, Dustin, is that you're somebody that sees the good in people and believes in educating and building people. And then for you, Dustin, it just says that you hate cats. So I don't know. It's
actually,
that's it. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, sounds right.
So it's
it's dead on.
It is. Yeah. So that's terrible. Well, so speaking of, cats, I was thinking about, so not too long ago, you kind of did a quick exodus to Miami. Like you made an announcement, sent some postcards from the beach and said, hey, I'm in Miami setting up shop. Last time I was in Miami, I was on the boardwalk and there were so many feral cats, like in all the little mango groves and stuff like that. But how's life in Miami? Tell me what's going on down there.
Dude, it's awesome. Well, first off, so everyone knows, the reason why there's cats everywhere, they actually control the rat population.
Oh, right on.
So Miami Beach in particular has very poor drainage. And so because it has poor drainage, everything stays wet because it's a subtropical climate, blah, blah, blah. And so it produces a lot of vermin. And so someone came up with this idea 30 years ago to kind of release feral cats into South Beach. And they're called Sobe cats for South Beach. And they actually control the vermin population.
Wow.
And it's natural, it's organic, it doesn't kill anything with pesticides. So it's a thing.
And no need for cat litter. They got all the sandbox they need.
You just got to watch where you step in the sand occasionally. Yeah.
Well, so tell us, how did that whole thing come about? I mean, you've been in influential in DFW for years with being the team lead at KW South. Like, you've been entitled, you've done things at the local church at Gateway Church. I think you were, so how did this whole move to Miami come about?
So my wife's originally from Brazil. She moved to Miami when she was 10, and that's where she kind of grew up.
Right.
And then I moved there out of college. And so I worked for a little advertising firm, and then it closed down. I ended up at Starbucks. Okay. And I was a manager at Starbucks, and my wife was one of my baristas. That's how we met.
Wow.
And so anyhow, I got a job offer here to come back to Dallas, is where I grew up, because I grew up here. And so we moved back here, and this is where we basically raised our family. Well, we've talked about, like, I always would joke, because there's a certain part, it's called Bal Harbor. It's kind of like where all the rich old people live. And like, not only there, but like there's a really cool mall there. But like, there's women who, like, they're like nurses in like their white uniforms, push these old people around.
Yeah.
And I tell Deborah, I'm like, that's me, man. I'm going to be that guy. I'm like, I'm going to get me a nurse. She's going to push me around. She's going to feed me cookies. I'm going to be 90 years old in my wheelchair, living off the beach in Miami. Like, that's my dream. And so anyhow, so then my oldest daughter, she was going to college. And in the process, we had a plan for her to go to A&M and everything. And she decided that, she's like, Dad, I really want to go to school in Florida. And we were like,
wow.
Oh. So she decided to do that. We got behind her on that. So because she was moving to Florida, that's my wife's like, hey, would it be crazy if we just moved up our timetable on going to Florida? And I was like, well, yeah, that is kind of crazy. So anyhow, we went, talked about it. Thank goodness with Keller Williams. I made some calls, did some networking, got everything lined up. And all of a sudden it was like things were falling into place. I'm like, well, shoot, I guess we're doing it. So,
wow.
Anyhow, so it was just a great opportunity for us to get there. And my son's super excited. He's loving it. So
yeah, you've got a son, Gavin. I've got a son, Gavin, that kind of grown up and gone to school, in Colleyville together. How was that transition for him?
It was surprisingly good. Well, first off, he got down there, and he is the only blonde hair, green eyed boy.
Oh yeah.
So the girls are a big fan of him because
he's a good looking kid.
He's a little different, right?
Yeah.
So he got a lot of attention. So obviously, when you're 16 years old,
Pretty much all that matters.
it really is, his confidence, the roof and all that. And then he loves that whole Miami life. Like, he's like going to the beach with his friends and just being outdoors, and he's playing a ton of golf now. So it's like, he's just really dove into like how you do it right now.
Yeah. Wow.
So so it's been such a good, the only thing I tell everybody is, the only thing I do not like about it, the traffic is awful, because you're on a melting pot of international people who do not know traffic laws.
Yeah, they don't care.
And so they're really, basically the rules are, there are no rules.
Right.
You just drive in Miami, assuming that no one follows any rules. It's okay. But if you want them to actually honor traffic laws, forget it. You're going to be really, really upset.
Well, speaking of law, yeah. So Dustin, you and your partner, of course, Mr. Matt Schultz, have built an amazing firm. You got amazing background. I understand that you're the brains of the organization.
Yeah, brains and looks. It's for thing we got going.
Right on. So tell us a little bit.
Dustin doesn't even really need Matt.
It's a charity thing, mostly at this point.
Yeah.
I think he was actually the first choice, but I'm forgiving it because, I think it's just a name issue. That's a confusion between the two Dustins now that we're having to navigate.
Yes.
But we've been lucky. I mean, we got on at a good time when the market was really kind of picking up, and, happened to fill a niche that people really needed, and it's gone well for us. We've been lucky.
Yeah, you guys, of course, I've seen you to grow in your influence, and you've always been so generous with your knowledge. I've seen you at different offices sharing, and some guys calling you guys the title twins, which you don't look anything alike necessarily, but I have seen you kind of grow in that influence. Was that really a strategy just to kind of build this through education? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the easiest path we've seen when we first got started was, if you have a captive audience, you can demonstrate your value. And for us, that's, education, knowledge. You can do that, and then you could turn around and ask for the business because now you've shown what you can provide. And when you do that, it's an easier sales point to bring agents and business into your office. And so that's kind of where we just sort of started. But it's really trying to even still at this point, it's still, I think, our most effective marketing tool is just teaching and demonstrating value, really.
Yeah. So y'all are doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's interesting, and you guys probably experienced this, not to get too much on the real estate side, but a lot of folks have had to go back to basics, the things that, because there was the wave that everybody rode the last few years, and then suddenly it was like, oh yeah, and they forgot how to work, or they didn't know how to work to begin with. And education is such a great way to do that. When you started, I guess I'll ask a question that's more about success. Like how you defined success, early on when you guys were starting out to where you are now, and what do you think has been the thing that has led to this success and this great influence you guys have in this community?
Really, when we started, my number one thing was, and I think this is true for a lot of startups, is fear. You just don't want to go bankrupt. You don't want to close. I've got bills. I have student loans. I've got things to pay, and so you just keep hustling because you have to. That fear sort of motivates you. And then once you clear the fear, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to shut down tomorrow. I can keep doing what I'm doing. You start looking at other ways to grow. And I always tell everybody that the main driver of our success has been the people that we work with, right? Like our staff allows us to do what we do. If we had to constantly babysit or oversee or do whatever, it wouldn't work the same. But if you have, the escrow officers, the assistants, the office managers, everybody that you can trust to do their job, then you can focus on what you're doing because you have somebody behind you that you completely trust to do their job. And so we've been lucky in that recruiting everybody that we've recruited, I can genuinely say I like everybody that we work with.
Yeah. Well, doesn't that make a difference?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And for them, I think it's a difference because they all, some days, most days, like each other, right? And that makes kind of work easier, and people feel that, and I think it makes it a little bit easier for.
Yeah, we've all probably had that person on our team at some point that you brought in, maybe because they checked a box, but they were toxic and bluntly, we don't have time to work with assholes anymore, do we? It's just it's such a drain on our energy that if you can eliminate that and create that vibe in your team, you built a lot of teams. So what do you think is kind of the secret to putting together a good team?
Dustin basically said it. Like, you have to have trust, but the hardest part in trust as a leader is actually trusting people to, like, did you make the right hire? And are you trusting this person to do the thing they said that they were good at and they can go do? Or are we actually not going to trust and we're going to control? And it's like, and that's when that flips to where it's like, it changes the whole dynamic, because the whole behavior at that point is when it changes. And not to mention when you're the leader and it's up to you to hold people accountable. Like, that's like one of the things we have with Portfolio is we don't use the word accountability. We only use the word ownership. So the whole thing is, this isn't about holding people accountable, because if I hold you accountable, then I am actually still holding the responsibility for that job. But so that means I own the job, and I'm trying to hold you accountable for the job that I'm owning.
Yeah.
Well, then that doesn't work. So then you have to own the job. So the question is, was I clear enough about what you own? And am I clear about what you own? And then now my job as your leader is to not tell you how to do it. Maybe I have to train you a little bit because maybe I have some expertise to share. But outside of that, my job is to actually support you in doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like there's a fundamental difference in that how we really build team is you have to, the joke and word of this is empower. Like, empower is such like it feels like this, I'm going to motivate you. No, that's not empower. Empower is, I'm going to look at you and go, I trust you to handle this and make the right choice and right decisions. And by the way, we're all counting.
Right.
So feel the weight of that. Now, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And how can Dustin help you? And now we're going to come in and we're going to support you. And yeah, you know what? The best accountability in the world is actually when a team hold each other accountable.
Right on. Wow.
So
there's so much to that, this, particularly when you're talking about that critical role that we're all in the bunker together, and you got to have each other's back. If you have that weak link on your team, and it's hard to identify. I think both of you guys, from what I know about you, you all have hearts for people and you want to see the best in people, but some people just don't show up the way that you do and take that initiative and take it personally. So what do you do on the front end? What do you guys do when you're hiring and looking for folks?
How
do you weed out the hassles?
I'd like to say, there's a lot of times you just kind of have to feel it out. I really don't have a good answer than you just feel it out. You call referrals, you talk to people, but ultimately I always say, you have to remember every time you're interviewing somebody that they're doing a sales pitch on you, right? So you can't lose sight of them. Everything they're saying is the right thing. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, because that's what they're they want the job. So you have to always remember that. And then you have to realize too that sometimes you're going to make bad decisions and you have to be willing to move on from those bad decisions. Like we've hired people that it hasn't worked and we've gotten better at quickly turning around and going, this isn't working. Let's not waste more time. Maybe run it off.
You put a time limit on that? Do you like go 30 days, 60 days, 90 days and have metrics? How do you?
Yeah, we try within 90 days to have a good idea. I mean,
Yeah.
we've moved on from people sooner when we've really just known. But usually, I mean, me and Matt will just have a phone call and be like, I think like this just isn't working. Like we've got to do something.
Yeah.
And then we'll just do it because, we've learned, like I said, there's been times in the past where we were newer at this and we would drag things out hoping things would work. And we finally just got to the point where it was like, we know this isn't going to work. Why are we wasting our time? Let's just cut it off, move on, start fresh, do something else. And, I think speeding up that decision-making process, trusting your gut a little bit,
Yeah.
I think is a big part.
So, and you truly do have a dream team right now. I know a lot of your folks on your team that come to our Real Producers events. What are you guys looking forward to? You mentioned that some of them are at a sales conference and they're going to come back just excited. What are you looking forward to in 2025? What are some things that Independence Schultz and Keller's doing?
I would love rates to come down. That'd be one thing I'd look forward to in 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I like the sales conference. I think it's a good idea to get people in a room and talk about the different things they're doing, the different markets, the ways that they've had to approach things. We were talking to somebody from, I think, Utah, and they were saying they're only allowed to teach like title specific courses. That's it. They can't talk contracts. They can't talk marketing. They can't talk, tools and resources for agents. And so they're really limited on that. So they've had to find other ways to approach their marketing. And so, if have one arm tied behind your back, you have to find a different way to fight.
Sure.
So, picking up what they're doing is another way of learning, okay, well, what do they do? How could we incorporate that? Would that work in our market? And so these conferences, the same thing, when you guys go to these real estate conferences, just sitting down and talking to other people in other parts of the country and getting brand new ideas really is kind of refreshing. I mean, it's cool to just see what other people have come up with. The creativity in business, I think, really is awesome to sort of see what people come up with when they have the opportunity.
Will you have a sit down with them, kind of a debrief and go, okay, like collectively y'all are going to, because it is, you've done so many conferences and things. It's drinking from the fire hose and all of it looks great. And you can try and do all these things. How do you identify what's going to be that thing that you're going to
and
take a run with?
It's a hard thing because like you said, you do come back and you want to do everything. And that's a common, Dustin knows because he worked on the title side. It's a common issue in title where you have to be all things to all people.
Yep.
And it can be debilitating because if you try to be everything to everyone, you can't do that all the time, right? Like that's too much of an ask. So pare it back. What's the one thing we want to work on being really good at right now? Let's do that. And then let's roll to the next one. Once we've got that nailed down, it's just part of second nature for us. It's just what we do. Okay, now let's add something else. And so, when they get back, we're going to have a little debrief session, see what they really want us to try to implement now, and then what we sort of prioritize and roll out through the course of the year to add new things.
Yep.
But there'll be a meeting for sure to sort of hash all.
Right on. Well, I hope some of that's energy is spent in Real Producers. You guys have always shown up with such great contribution to this community, and I know the agents that you guys work with, that are truly you have affected them and helped their clients. They attribute a lot of their success to you. They've trusted their clients and you, their livelihood to you. So that says a whole lot. But
and what he said, like for every entrepreneur, business owner out there paying attention to this right now, like the common mistake for every leader is, what do you want to implement next year? And if you really stripped away the answer is everything all the time, all at once.
Right. Sure.
And it's like, and that's every time the human math of that equation never adds up.
Yeah.
And that's why people burn out. It's why they quit. It's why they lose the momentum swing that they originally had.
Yeah.
And it's because they're trying to do everything all at once when, like Dustin just laid it out. It's like, no, what you do is you put a plan together. You go, okay, here's all the things that we want to do. Now the question is, what are we doing in the first quarter?
Right.
And what can we because we really can only do one or two. And then let's get good at it. We can facilitate it, get it off the ground and get it operational. And once something is genuinely operational, you can actually start to automate, because again, we're in a technological environment. You can start automating chunks of that to where then you can move on to the next. And I see that happen. Real estate agents all the time. They'll go to a conference and they'll come back and be like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm going to do TikTok videos every single day and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, just slow down.
Yeah.
Pick one. Let's just start with one thing. And then let's do that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then let's pick another one. And let's do that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's pick another one. Do that for a little bit. Like,
Hammer at the rock.
it's going to be okay.
It's one of the things I always say in real estate. It's why I think coaching is such a big aspect of it, is because you kind of know what you need to do, right? It's just actually doing it is the hard part. And I think sometimes, like you said, getting back to the basics aren't sexy. They're not what people want to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of times,
Not as sexy as title.
yeah.
That because title's sexy. Don't sell.
Doesn't love, yeah.
And nothing like abstract.
Yeah. Surveys, boundary coverage. But like you don't want to do the basic things because it's not like I got to make this new video and I'm going to get a drone. And it's like, those are all good ideas, but also have the face-to-face meetings, do the phone call, sit down and do your, work your sphere, the things that you don't want to do because it's not cool and trendy.
Yep.
And it's like, I get a lot of times why people are drawn to the new thing, but sometimes just buckling down and being confident in what you're doing is, that's worked forever, is a good idea. And so I think sometimes, especially in real estate, just having that coach to be like, no, sit down, focus, do the thing you're supposed to do.
Yep.
Really does help in that business.
Yeah, you can do exciting in your personal life, but do the boring stuff at work that actually gets stuff done.
And that's the annoying answer. And it annoys me. Success is boring.
Yeah.
Like
So true.
Anybody you ever meet with who's exceptional at whatever they do.
Yeah.
And you're looking for the secret sauce. And the answer is always like, show up, do the work, be smart, work on your skills.
Yeah.
Do it every day. Gag. Like that's so boring. Come on, like give me something. I won the lottery. I just completely lucked out and you can luck out too.
Yeah.
Like there's just that whole thing where like, nope, it's just.
And if you do it well enough, you eventually might find yourself on Miami Beach, doing it.
You just
might. So
all the Sobe cats.
So speaking of like 2025, you got some exciting stuff coming up. In fact, you've got a conference here next month at Metroplex. What's that going to be about? That sounds pretty exciting.
So it's so funny because, there's doing the team leader job for 9.5 years for one of the largest brokerages in Dallas-Fort Worth. You develop really, really strong relationships with people. And there's things like you just don't know how to turn off. Like I don't know how to turn that off. And then Leslie Akers, who was my predecessor.
Yeah, sure.
For also 9 years. We're still very, very, very close. And so we were talking, we're like, there's a lot of chatter around whether it be the NAR settlements, whether it be just the difficulty of the market. Like NAR did release some sort of report that this is one of the most challenging markets since 1995 in terms of active buyers and sellers actively in the market. And it's like, when you take those things into consideration, and then really what my takeaway is that the NAR settlement has basically, the consumer has basically said to us and to our industry, can you stop making this a hobby business and level up? If I'm taking a note from the consumer, that's the note I'm taking from the consumer.
Yeah, that's great.
And so it's like, okay, that's what they're asking of us, is to level up what we have to offer. And so if we're leveling up what we're focused on, and that's what Leslie and I talked about, let's invite people in the room. Let's not worry about, like, to be honest with you, the market's actually very dangerous right now for all of us in real estate. And so at this point in time, I'm not worried about what brand we represent. I've got my brand and I love my brand.
Sure.
But we're not about brand right now. Right now, we need to come together as a community and as a group of people and go, look, I drive a BMW, okay? You may not drive a BMW, but it's okay. We both drive on cars and we drive on the roads.
Sure.
And we got to figure out how to work to drive the road together.
Yeah.
And so
otherwise it turns into Miami.
And it's
no rules. Yeah, right.
Well, and that's the whole thing is like, okay, if we aren't careful on how we negotiate with each other, on how we support each other in deals, if we allow this to be a cutthroat, backstab environment, all we're going to do is just cannibalize each other. And then bottom line, all of us are going to lose.
Right on.
That's all that's going to happen. All of us are going to lose. And so we can't succumb to that. We have to be better. The consumer has asked us to be better.
Yeah.
So therefore, we need to come together and we need to be better. So our focus is going to be coming up on November 13th and there's
November 11th.
11th, excuse
That's
me.
right, yeah. Yep.
That's what would I do with this, man? You know?
I got you back.
Appreciate that. But we've got that coming up. We've got 175 seats. That's what Metroplex has available in their room, I believe. So
That's Armistice Day, by the way, isn't it? Is that what that November 11th? So that's very appropriate, I guess, in the sense of bringing people together.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny. We've been having a lot of chatter around wartime versus peacetime.
Yeah.
And I feel like that for our industry, we are in wartime.
Yeah.
My 19-year-old daughter gets flyers in the mail asking if she's basically been taken advantage of by a realtor
Wow.
for lawsuits, for ambulance chasing lawsuits.
She said, just my dad.
And she's like,
And that's already-
19, I've never even bought a house, And I'm like,
Wow.
man, they're sending mailers to my
Yeah, that's tough.
And so with that kind of stuff happening in the market, that's why it's like, listen, we need to start having a higher level of dialogue, and we're going to have to start rethinking how we approach this whole market right now.
Yeah.
And we need to be realtors together right now.
Well, I know people are going to be glad to see you and Leslie together. You guys have influenced so many people in this community. So they've probably been missing your influence. So to bring all those folks together, and it's a kind of a private event. Is it sort of for this group, or is it open to others, or what's the?
It's open to others. The main issue we have is we don't have that many seats.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So the question is, and obviously if we fill up, we'll probably,
okay.
Wes and I agreed, we probably would do another one if we exceed demand and all that kind of stuff, because I feel like no matter what, whether it's even just us, we kind of want to get the conversation going. I feel like we're going to need a series of these conversations. I think you guys should be hosting these things. I think this is going to have to be a dialogue, because we have to, my main focus is to focus on tactical solutions for how a real estate agent needs to approach 2025.
Right on.
Here's what the market's going to give you.
Yeah.
It could go one way or another. We'll see what happens. Election's going to have some.
Yeah. And this will be timely.
Yep.
Obviously, there'll be some news. There's going to be some news.
There's going to be some news. So just be fresh off the news.
Yeah.
To be ready to start laying this into the roadwork of what's.
Is that, do you think that's going to change your approach in how you're going to, type of information you're going to share as far as?
Yeah. Without getting too deep into just two simple things. One, let's say capital gains tax doesn't change,
right?
Or it significantly changes.
Sure.
That affects homeowners immediately.
Right.
Because if it goes to 44% capital gains tax on unrealized gains, well, that's everyone's equity in their home.
Sure.
If the government hasn't thought about that just yet, or maybe it's just a political ploy at the moment, which it could very well be. But if that were to happen, it would drastically change home ownership.
Wow.
Because it directly attacks equity immediately. And people are paying taxes on their equity, which they're not realizing, and they're going to take out HELOCs to basically pay their taxes.
Right.
So now it's just a proposed plan. We don't know if it's actually going to happen or not.
Sure.
But that could easily affect the market overnight. So, how we have dialogue right now, there's plenty of sellers already showing up who go, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent. And buyer's agents are not prepared to have a conversation with their buyer, especially if they're a first-time home buyer, if they're a VA buyer. There's problems with getting compensated to do the job. So what do? Do you do pro bono? Do you work for free? Right? There's tactical solutions to this. And see, the lucky thing for me is I'm not an attorney. So you're going to tell people what to do, which might be a little...
right. As long as you say I'm not an attorney, I think you're covered.
I'm not an attorney, and I'm nobody's broker. So
that's right.
Going to give you my opinions.
My hands.
Yeah.
My opinions only.
But you guys do offer a lot of counsel to folks, and you are always available, as I understand, just a phone call away for some of those types of questions, right?
Yeah, it's the thing I always say of I'm addicted to my phone. It's great for you. My wife hates it, but it's part of life. But yeah, it is, you're right. It's an interesting time for sure for real estate. And I do think people are having to look a little harder at how they do things.
Yep.
Because, like we said, you were talking about earlier, which, kind of talked about the last few years, or, now several years ago, you didn't have to do a lot to sell a house.
Right.
People just showed up and made you offers. Now you're having to work to sell the house. And that's a skill that a lot of people haven't. It's either a skill they never learned, or it's a muscle they haven't used in a while. And we're having to see people sort of reevaluate that game plan. How do they approach this sort of market?
Yeah.
How do they sell a house? Not just list it and let people show up and buy it, but how do you sell it?
Yeah.
And that's where I think these sorts of, meetings of people collaboratively talking and working through ideas, and good.
Well, and these are cycles that you guys have been in this business long enough. You've seen the waves, you've seen the valleys, the peaks and stuff. So I'll end with this. If you're looking back 10 years ago, two-part question. What would you tell yourself, your younger self 10 years ago? What would you tell yourself, business and personal? What would be the advice you'd give?
Oh, man. You want to answer this one first?
I would.
I got to think.
Well, I would have, because making money wasn't necessarily a challenge 10 years ago. It was, not too shabby. 2014, right?
Right.
So money was good. I would have lived off half my money. I would have bought way more real estate. Real estate. Man, I'd have moved every year. If I could go back 10 years right now.
As many houses as I can at 3% interest.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I would have bought so many houses, right? So that would be the first thing. I wish that I was more wealth-minded at that time in my life.
Yeah.
And then, because it's the biggest thing. I've worked very, very, very hard for money, and I kick myself for not making my money work even harder. So that was
that smart versus hard.
Yeah, there's that thing.
Yeah,
I should have been smart. Like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I knew better, right? So I wish I'd bought more real estate.
Yeah.
I wish that I would have, specifically like at a market time like this, I would have sought after and acquired more skills. For example, I'm in Miami. I'm teaching a negotiation series right now, and it's going really well. And I realize every time I've done this, there's only more that I don't know as being an expert negotiator. And ironically, everyone in real estate thinks that they're fantastic negotiators.
Right.
And bottom line is, there's only one good negotiator in any deal.
Sure. That's right.
So the question is like, how do I know, instead of thinking that, how can I measure my skills? Right. And I think that's so critical right now. I would go back and I would really improve on skills even more. Like, I worked on some stuff, like right now I'm going back through on some NLP stuff right now. So I would be working hard. I'm going to work harder on my NLP. And man, some of that, if I knew some of that stuff then,
sure,
the deals I would have put together, I would have negotiated better for myself, whether it be compensation. I would have negotiated better for ownership or anything like that I wanted my hands on at the time, because I just would have been more.
Right. Wow.
So
yeah, I mean, something similar. I mean, it's funny because, I remember when I first got into it, it was not the best time. It was 08, 09, not the greatest market, but, it was 2012, but I was getting out of college in 08, 09. And I remember everybody saying, like, real estate's cyclical. It's cyclical. And then we have, 9 good years, and everybody forgets it's cyclical and panics, and whenever it starts going down. I even do that now with my closers. They'll go, like, oh man, it's so slow. And I'm like, do you not remember 08, 09? Do you not remember when it's slow? Like, yeah, but I just didn't think, like, that was, as much as 2020, 2021 was an outlier on how busy it was, this is an outlier on how slow it is.
Yep.
It's like, if you just take those 5 years and you average them out, it's about an average year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't feel like it, but that's why you can't, like you said, spend up to what you're making every single year and assume that's going to keep going. And so, I think reminding yourself that everything is cyclical, and real estate is one of those up and down things. And so you sort of have to ride that midline of calmness in between it. Yeah, I think taking advantage of opportunities and being patient with it is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Don't rush anything, don't force it, just sort of let the opportunities come to you. And I think that's always better than, because people ask, like, where are you going to open an office next?
Yeah.
Like, that's not really how I view it. It's not, where do we want to go? It's just, what's a good, smart opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the better way to look at it than just trying to force something to happen if it's not.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Patience would be good for me.
Right on.
What is this? What's this word you say?
I know.
I don't know this word.
I do this with my kid. He's 3, and every time it's like, I want this. I'm like, not right now. It's like, gotta be patient.
And there is that tension between, waiting for good things to happen and making good things happen. Like a lot of folks, I've kicked open a lot of doors that, it's way easier when they open for you because you made good choices along the way.
Yep.
You did those right things, but sometimes that's the only way in, is to kick it in,
Yep.
or for me, half the time I just sneak in the back door, get arrested, get kicked out of the club, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So, but just happy to be here.
That's a whole other podcast. Yeah.
That's a whole other. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate,
thank you,
Dustin, you coming. Dustin, I'm just glad that you dressed up for this. I was expecting you in a seersucker suit and your Crocs and socks, because I know that's your usual.
Yeah, old Miami in all the time.
Yeah, my straw fedora, the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This has been great. So, well, folks, that's our show today. We are here every week, same time, same bat channel, coming to you live from Studio USA West. And